Recording is on.
We don't hear you, Chris. No, now you're on mute. No, we don't hear you. What did you? What just happened?
What about now?
Yeah.
So weird. I promise I'm fixing these things. Anyway, welcome to governance discussion for DXgov for December 30th, 2020. I was about to mess that up. To go over the agenda first at the beginning, the governance 1.0 stuff, governance gas refunds, the deployment just happened, and then a proposal roundup, and then revisiting a post on pausing minting from the bonding curve. And then that relates, I think, to the multi-call installation that Nico has been working on. And then just touching briefly on where we're at with the worker comp guidelines. I know there's been some developments there. And then would like to talk briefly about DXD snapshot and what the kind of plan or thinking is with that. Yeah. To start with the governance gas refunds, not much to say except for this is just the contract is deployed. So if you're looking to get your refunds, go ahead and do that there. It's a little bit less than the amount that we were subsidizing last time, but hopefully it should be just as easy. And there's the guide should be the same as before, even though it's a new contract. And then proposal roundup after a pretty tumultuous and busy week, a little quieter on the proposal front this week. I know there was gas was causing a little bit of issues. So I know that I think Elon and Ezra's rep boost, no one had voted on until yesterday, but I think those are now passing. And then there is a couple other worker proposals, and I think that's about it. And I actually don't think there are any ENS updates. So I don't know if anyone had any thoughts or comments on the
related to that, and it also relates to refunds. We do see that when the gas is high, like clearly people are way less likely to vote. So even though gas was high, I voted on those because the worst thing that happens is it fails and no one votes on it, right? So like there's one day left. So you just suck it up and you pay the gas. It would be like in general nice if that's more of like a processing thing, right? Like everyone kind of agrees on consensus that those rep boosts are good. We don't need 10 people voting, but if someone's going to like process it, or someone's going to like boost something, or like what I would consider like processing, and that's a real cost to that person, it doesn't seem like 75% refund makes sense. It's those in theory should be 100% refunded, I feel like, because it's almost like a processing operations task. And if that's the cost to do it, that's the cost to the DAO. Otherwise, these things fail and no one votes on it, and then it's a problem. So it's like, a lot of people spend a bunch of money doing these votes just because they have to they have to get done. And it's costing money, like it's costing hundreds of dollars over the course of months, right? So I don't know if there's a way to manage that better than we're currently doing it. Like just an idea to think about, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess staking and execution, I think, are reimbursed 100%. And I guess part of the concern is if you do reimburse 100%, then this could just lead to some additional expenses for DXDAO. Everyone is kind of voting and doing that. So maybe there's some limit we want to make on that. But yeah, I mean, things get weird when gas prices get high. Like for instance, I was basically like watching those proposals, and like, yeah, every couple hours I would like check on gas, and it's like 150, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll wait and make sure that this will go through, but that's because like I'm looking at it, and maybe part of this onus is on like the person who's boosting the proposal, because like the boost, that person actually has some financial incentive to see that proposal pass. And so at the end, like they should at least be voting on it. But I think that's somewhat separate from, is the 75% for voting refunds sufficient?
Yeah.
Oh, there is actually Ezra's rep boost is in overtime. So I guess because it was voted within the 2-day period, even though it was at 0%, I guess it went from nothing to.
I thought it was a 1-day period, but I guess it's a 2-day period. Then it goes into overtime.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I'm just looking at it now, and it says like 21 hours and 23 minutes, and I think it was boosted. I mean, I think it was voted on like a day ago. So
it's 2 days for quiet ending. Like I just looked at the parameters.
cool.
So if something, because it was no votes and then one vote happens, so as long as that's within 48 hours of it finalizing, then it goes into overtime, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we gotta. I mean, theoretically, it's not a big deal if this goes into overtime, but in general, we should make sure that we're watching them with at least 48 hours
Yeah.
to have some. Yes.
Because I was watching it, but I wasn't watching it with the 48-hour thing in mind, because I was just thinking that. But it makes sense to get that vote in before that, so it doesn't go into overtime there. And then just because I checked the one other proposal I forgot to mention, I checked the Block Scout Block Explorer for this, but this is a proposal to reimburse 3,000 XGen into XDXDAO. And I actually wasn't sure exactly what this was, but it looked like that the Block Explorer did this address did spend 3,000 gen. So I don't know if someone wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, I guess this is like an example of a workaround with like bridge technology still being young. The DAO stack bridge, it looks like it was able to do like an alternate receiver. So like theoretically, a multi-sig on mainnet could send gen through the DAO stack bridge to the XDX DAO, but when we tried it, it didn't work. So instead, someone sent gen directly or xgen directly into the DAO, and then that same wallet address looks like is asking for the same amount of gen that was sent to XDX DAO reimbursed as gen. So I mean, xgen and gen are equal 1-to-1, and it's really just like I guess it's kind of related to the idea of like the member balancers. Like we can get things done with DXDAO. Like we can get tokens to where we need to get them to be if people do it ahead of time and then ask the DAO to be reimbursed. And so the like that is a way we could already have DAI in DXDAO. Like we could have 30,000 DAI in DXDAO today if people sent DAI into it and then ask for a reimbursement in ETH at some slight discount to the market, right? So there's a whole post on that. So that's something that is always an option for DXDAO to be able to do, is count on its members to take action that the DAO actually needs and then get reimbursed for it.
And so there is a little bit of a leap of faith from whoever is submitting that proposal that that rep holders will reimburse according to that. And I guess it makes sense for people that have maybe gone through the proposal process and have an expectations of what rep holders will do. But I think maybe that little bit of leap of faith might be holding people up a little bit. I mean, because I think the DAI and the meta balance thing, it's an interesting idea, and I think we would be implementing on some kind of larger scale if if we didn't have the multi-call scheme kind of coming down the pipe. I don't know if there's a concern, like, do we want to push that in some more formal way, like say, be more explicit on like potential discounts for if we want to give DAI on like what exactly that will be, because it doesn't seem like people are doing it right now, even though the structure seems to be there.
Yeah. So that tool basically works better. Let's say we want 200,000 DAI into DXDAO. Getting 200,000 DAI that way is going to be a huge pain, right? But once we use the multi-call or something and do a trade and we get 200,000 DAI into DXDAO, if you wanted to like maintain 200,000 DAI, so like if it dips to 190, there's some incentive to push it back up to 200, and so you have some target in mind. It's a good tool for that, for maintaining a certain target within a DAO, because then you're only have to do like smaller clips. Like it would be hard to get 200,000 DAI worth of people's taking this slight leap of faith, even if there's a discount to the market price, to get 200,000 DAI into the DAO. So once we have the DAI in there, like maybe we could implement it to maintain a target amount, which would be cool.
Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts on proposals currently in the queue, questions or comments?
I guess one thing, like in the unboosted proposals, it looks like there's quite a few these days, and like a bunch of them are like mistake proposals. It would be nice to be able to like hide or mark, like if someone makes a mistake proposal, like really
it's there for
mark
45 days.
Don't have
50
to be
days.
looking at it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've like gotten used to that, but I think that is, that is a kind of something that if you're looking at the voting interface for the first time, that might be a little confusing, and especially because now it's almost like there's just like a little bit of trash down there at the bottom.
So, like, I'm trying to think of like a simple way to do this. The same address that created the proposal would sign a transaction or sign message to, I don't know, signal the UI to maybe gray it out or make it transparent or something.
Yeah, I mean, because all we want is a signal. We don't like want to. We don't want to have anything governance is saying like, don't vote on this. This is like toxic. We want the person who's submitting the proposal to kind of, I guess, send that or yeah. I mean, I think something like that would probably be good. They're just signing it and they're like rescinding the proposal or something.
Yeah. So this could be interesting. And then it's only the UI reacting to it. I feel like if this is like an on-chain transaction that sort of cancels it, then it might be more complex and it could open it up for like manipulation.
Elan, what would be cool is just a subsection. So right now we have boosted, like boosting and regular. And then if the person signs it, it just goes below that into another section called like graveyard proposals. And it just sits there until it expires. So you just have one more section down below, which is like the graveyard. And only the person can put it in there.
I feel like that's kind of like adding more complexity to the UI. But I mean, this is something we could brainstorm at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the other signal is most of the ones at the bottom have been unboosted, right? Like they have some gen staked against it. I think all but like one of those do, because I remember, for instance, one of them down there, like I had boosted, but then it was a worker proposal and then I unboosted it. And so now it's just kind of there. I think the only one that is not like been replaced by another proposal was this proposal to fund a market on Omen by Daniel. But all the others, like there was a corresponding like replacement proposal.
Yeah. So I mean, this is something to like brainstorm on. I think this could be a great feature, and maybe, yeah.
I will just say I've really enjoyed the new scroll. Like that's kind of like a very different experience, and I find myself like now it's like using that to search for different proposals. So I think that's been very helpful, and I'm glad for the upgrade there.
Great.
Oh, for a bunch of people, the formatting of that still doesn't work. Is there a way is that being looked at still? Or do you have to like
Is that the cache issue, or is that like
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a cache issue
so
on
where
certain
it's like it
maybe?
shows up and it's like not even it doesn't like look
it's totally unformatted, yeah. Like a goose, like there is a workaround to clear your local cache for that website or whatever, but as Augusto pointed out, like most people don't know how to do that, aren't that comfortable with that, and so it would be great if there was like if it just didn't do that too.
yeah, and also capitalized letters searching is always great. But I think that like interface is a very good way to like now go and see like what's about to happen in DXgov governance, what's happening now with as a way, because this is failing, this is boosted, this is going to pass. I think it's a good start for that. Cool. And then wanted to shift to post. Oh, I pasted it already. Pausing minting from the bonding curve. So, of course, after the proposal passed, I think it was on Christmas Day. It was the Christmas afternoon. After 2 overtime sessions, the immediately halt the bonding curve proposal did pass, and so John had, I think, taken the first crack on what the next steps would be to implement that. And he's got a post there on some of the things. I think there's kind of 3 steps that he said there. One is install a plugin that would allow DXDAO to control the curve. 2 is conduct a technical review of any technical problems of raising the price too high. And then 3, actually set the bonding curve's min investment parameter to an extremely high price, which would effectively pause the curve. There is, I think, so the plugin proposal to install new plugins, I think it takes a total of 16 days. So that does have some installation or some time there. But I think this could also be part of the multi-call scheme effort that we're working on here. So we could just have the bonding curve be one of the contracts I think that the multi-call scheme could interact with. And so that needs to go through its own, that would allow us to maybe shoot 2 birds with 1 stone in terms of getting that proposal, the plugin through. Yeah, so I don't know if, I guess John's not on the call to answer questions about the post, but how are kind of people thinking about the next steps forward for halting the bonding curve?
I mean, it's easy. Once that we integrate the multi-call, we make the call to the DXD token and change the parameters.
Yeah, and that proposal will have to be voted on by rep holders again, right? So theoretically, it would not pass.
Yeah. But well,
you would expect it to pass, but theoretically, it could not pass too.
Well, even I voted against the other proposal, I would try to take care to maintain the exact word, right? This is what. I mean, I voted against the halting of the bonding curve, but if I see that our governance is at stake and the word that DXgov is at risk, I will jump on and defend the exact word and commitment, even though I disagree with the actions that we are about to take. I expect that the rest of the voters will do the same.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we can. We'll look at these.
You also have that snapshot. I don't know. Someone created a snapshot proposal about that vote as well, which is interesting. It's only got a little traction so far, but it would be great if we could get more DXD holders just to like like vote on that as well, just to like reaffirm it, I guess would be awesome, right?
Also, the snapshot, is the snapshot website or smart contracts or anything recognized by DXgov? Shouldn't we signal that we recognize the DXgov, the snapshot as a part of something official, or it is not? Right? Because the idea for that is to was always to use the DXG guild, which has taken more time because, well, it took more time because we are waiting for audit and we had other priorities.
Yeah, Augusto, that's a good point. At this point, like it's a tool that like the whole ecosystem's familiar with. So like we're trying it out. Clearly it doesn't lead to anything official, but it is a good way to get sense from known DXD holders versus we used to just ask DXD holders like on Twitter or like on Telegram, right? So at least this is better, but like yes, DXD guilds is what we really want to use, right? And when that's ready, we can make that more an official DXDAO tool. But you're saying, do we need to do a proposal that like recognizes snapshot? I'm
right.
not sure.
So I can see the confusion here, just because it seems like we've had a lot of, when I was even thinking about starting to update the governance guidebook, I feel like we're pretty much in an interesting influx period between governance 2.0, the guilds, fractalization, and some of the signaling stuff we've been playing around with. And I think it's good to try things out. But we do need to start kind of gathering all of our different ideas and figuring out which ones we really want to put resources behind. And that includes communicating to the community what we consider to be like the legitimate way to signal and how we want to take on just voting in general. But I do agree with you, Sky, that I think that the snapshot is a nice tool to get DXD holders more involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to say that I think a snapshot is a great step over Telegram. That there is a lot of people on Telegram and another I don't know, we can call it informant channels where they can claim, "Hey, I'm a DXD holder," but you cannot prove how much do you have, how long have you had DXD, were you one of the early investors? So a tool like a snapshot is already super useful because we know the sentiment, the real sentiment of the true DXDAO holders, not some guys that are claiming to have DXD and we cannot prove on Telegram. So that is where the real governance should happen for me.
Yeah, and there was some decent turnout on the first, which was a test proposal. Getting the snapshot proposals in front of DXD holders is like the other difficult thing, right? Maybe they're not the most active followers of like everything DXDAO is doing, so that's the other trick. Whether it's Uni or any, like there's snapshot proposals for other tokens we all hold probably, and you probably go never go look at it, right? So it takes that extra bit of effort as a token holder to go to snapshot, care about the governance for that token, choose to vote on that token, and deal with like the noise of the other like proposals that aren't important. So that's still like the hurdle that has to be overcome.
So maybe as a kind of a good intermediary as we're working out stuff with governance 2.0, maybe we could put something on DAO Talk, just kind of legitimizing the use of snapshot as kind of something we want DXD holders to go to as we're figuring out how to do something more on chain. And that could be maybe just a good hat tip to say, hey, this is something DXDAO is talking about, and it's a good way for DXD holders to have their voices heard.
Yeah, I think it's hard to have too much signal. So I think like we should be welcoming new ways of signal, just because we're a lot of ways we're flying blind in this. So I definitely welcome that. I think it's also about voter engagement. So I think we need to encourage the use of that. And I guess the question is, what can we do to encourage the use of that? And so, while I think the bonding curve proposal is important, I wonder if that's kind of like the best way to start engagement on like the snapshot. So I'm wondering if there's something maybe with Swapper or something else that we can have, like some type of vote by DXD holders that would drive engagement to Snapshot that we could potentially like link to in that first post in DAO Talk where we're kind of explaining the role of Snapshot. Any ideas on what we could do, or we just kind of do the bonding curve proposal? I think that it's in there now. I think it will go to January 5th or so. We could promote that as a way of looking to get additional signal.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Maybe I could work with you, Chris, on just putting something together for a post, and then we could, of course, advertise it on all of our different community channels and see if that could help getting some traction.
Yeah, on the first test proposal, which was good, like, do DXD holders want to be able to vote on Signal or whatever it was exactly? Like, my guess was I was guessing an over under of 5,000 would be something good, and we got about 5,000 DXD votes out of what, 48,000 or whatever, 49,000. So that's okay. It's not like a super majority, but it's like pretty good. There were 20 different voters, and so if we could get that or more on most Snapshot proposals, I think that's pretty good for Signal.
And I think this actually sets up very well for the guild, the DXD guild itself, because it kind of starts the engagement, starts kind of getting things running on that. So I think that'll kind of slide right into this. It's almost like Snapshot's the first, or like the draft version of DXD voting, but we can start to engage people then. So we jumped around a little bit because I guess I want to talk about DXD Snapshot voting, but the reason that we were brought up was we were talking about the pausing minting for the bonding curve post, John, that you wrote. And so we were just kind of thinking of the next steps there. And so I guess the idea now is to combine that first step, the plugin proposal step, with the multi-call scheme proposal itself. And so I guess that's kind of the first thing that we need to do in order to start to execute on that. And so what exactly, I know that Nico has a separate post on that we can talk about, but in terms of the pausing, what should we be thinking about with that for the next steps there? Just wait on the multi-call scheme, or should we be?
Yeah, installing a plugin is the next step, and I think it makes sense to use because the multi-call scheme is about ready to go, and basically it can point to multiple contracts. So I think we were going to do this anyways, basically add the bonding curve to that list. And then, that accomplishes that first step of having a plugin to connect and control the bonding curve parameters with. Yeah. And Nico could speak more to kind of where we are at with that. I think it's a matter of testing and then making the proposal to install the plugin. I don't know if we want to do some more testing on XDAI. I was a little confused on that myself.
Yeah, that's like the only question I have too, and I would maybe propose it in a DAO Talk post. So maybe making a little poll there, what people think, if we should do a test on XDAI first, or if we should test the multi-call directly on mainnet. So that's like just a question we need to find consensus about. But basically, the next steps to be able to use the multi-call scheme would be that we test it either on XDAI or directly on mainnet. And once we tested it, we can directly interact with the bonding curve contract and do whatever changes we want to do. So it's just a matter of days until we find the consensus, and then the plugin proposal to actually install the multi-call scheme on mainnet is, I think, 14 days earliest until it will pass, unless we find majority voting if we want to get it installed faster.
I think it makes sense to make a proposal to install it both on mainnet and on XDAI. Since XDAI is faster, it gives us time to test on XDAI. If for some reason something gets discovered that's a problem, the mainnet proposal would not have passed yet anyways.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and just thinking about timing here, because I think we had thought about maybe the multi-call scheme, or at least I was thinking about this, maybe the multi-call scheme plugin proposal is an opportunity to get a majority vote, just because I think that would something that could attract enough, I guess, political support, especially if it was part of the process, I think, to pause the bonding curve. But I imagine that it might be like that time period that we're waiting for it to vote on might be a good opportunity for us to test the multi-call scheme on XDAI. So perhaps we should just kind of have that go in its regular 14, 15 day cycle, or do we want to try to maybe put some extra resources into that and making it a majority vote?
I think it makes sense to try to get the testing in on XDAI before making any kind of big push to get it passed.
And should we submit I guess you think we should submit the proposals like at the same time?
Yeah, I think basically as soon as we're ready now, we should do both of them. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're pretty much ready, right, Nico? Like,
Yes, almost ready. Like the only little part I just missed is like that we actually need to wait until someone deploys the
swapper liquidity.
swapper liquidity layer. That's because we need to have the address of the contract once it was deployed to actually whitelist it on the multi-call scheme. But yeah, we should see some action there, and should be good to put up the installation plugin maybe today, at latest tomorrow.
Sweet.
I know this topic may make things more complicated, but like there's always the risk that someone is able to do something with the multi-call and like get a proposal through that does something that we don't expect, right? That's like the biggest risk, right? The safest way to protect against that would be to like have DXDAO like number 2 put some funds in there and then do all this stuff from that second DAO, right? But that causes a lot of complexities and things. We're confident enough that we don't think that we need to like protect the entire set of funds that are in the DAO by having a whole second one.
So an important, like, I mean, that's a good. Oh, go ahead, Nico.
Yeah, I guess Jim, you wanted to say exactly the same. But Sky, what you just described is exactly the decision we took. So we decided that we don't want to use the multi-call scheme to actually transfer any kind of tokens or funds natively. So currently it can just interact with contracts, but it cannot move any of the funds from the treasury, which means in case of the swapper liquidity or on a trade, we have to create a separate proposal that basically transfer the tokens or ERC20 balances into the relayers first. So that's like kind of the subDAO that is holding the contracts. And then the multi-call basically just executes the transactions we want to execute. So that's how we're doing it right now. We want to continue to research better pattern, but as of now, that seems to be a proper solution, just to make sure, even if we get attacked, nobody can drain the treasury funds at all.
Cool. Okay, I didn't realize that. So does the proposal, like do you always need to do the 7-day proposal like ahead of that, then to move the funds into the relayer, and then you do the multi-call proposal? Like, or can you do them simultaneously, kind of, or like one day apart?
Exactly. You could even do it multiple hours or something like that. We just need to make sure that they are getting boosted at the same time.
Gotcha.
So basically, once the funds have been transferred, a few seconds later, the execution on your relay could happen.
Cool. Thanks.
And just looking a little bit more at the post from Nico, that there are some kind of decisions that we should make on the specific, I guess, the parameters of the scheme. And so I think John had some thoughts on maybe adjusting some of them, and then Geronimo, I think, created a poll on some of them. So I think that the polls are the 3 polls are: first, what should the queued vote period limit be for the multi-call scheme? So I think this is how long it would take proposals to expire. Sky, to your point about clutter earlier. 2, what should the proposing rep reward be for the multi-call scheme? So right now, any proposal is given, I think, 500 rep. And so should we potentially lower that? And then 3, should we disable the voters' reputation loss ratio so no one is losing any reputation by voting on proposals? So this is in the current scheme. If you vote on a proposal before it's boosted, you basically stake your reputation and put it at risk. I think, yeah, there's some, I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on these, or Corcus or John want to speak more to them.
Yeah, like regarding the proposing rep reward, it is connected to the question regarding if the D-star is fractalizing itself, seeing Omen, then those rewards should be happening on the guild side. And then I don't see like why the, I don't know, the quarterly roadmap approval should be rewarded for the guilds. Something like that. Like, I think it is intertwined with the fractalization, and it's something we need to consider.
Yeah, so you're saying just logistically, if we're actually going to be having guilds doing budget proposals, how are we rewarding workers for rep through that? It would be through each guild that would do that, just to make sure I'm understanding.
Exactly. Like I see the market curation process, for example, stuff like that should be rewarded not only for workers. Like, our goal should, it's very specific use case right now, but it is a very helpful tool for community invites, right? We have a lot of a few Omen hardcore guys who would like to get rewarded for that, and seeing that rather on the guild side and not on the I mean, the D-Star itself will delegate to the guild a lot of work regarding Omen, which is definitely the right way, because a lot of DXgov rep holders are not looking at the market curation, and they shouldn't. Like, it's a lot of work to verify market validity and stuff like that. So I see it has a lot of potential to reward community contributions and actually let the guild grow.
The tricky thing I see is that while you want the guild rep distributions to really be their own monster and expand to like those communities of those product and things, at the same time you still want DXDAO rep distribution to continue to grow and spread. And actually a lot of that will also want to be spread to the same people that are helping the products and the guilds of DXDAO. So you kind of have to you want to maybe do both. So maybe you don't want to forget about one. You want to continue to distribute both types of rep. It's extra work.
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah. And also, like, if DXgov goes fractalization, a lot of stuff will go like a level lower, like guild level, but there will be like I hope proposals which are like way more activist style, and those should be like rewarded. Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't have anything against keeping the rewards for the DXgov level.
I mean, part of it, so like, for example, the DXDAO, there's now a few people that got some rep from the Omen Markets sourcing competition, right? And they have that rep on DXDAO currently. There's an argument, maybe it would be smart to also like have an option where they can get that rep on mainnet as well, right? Like they earn that, and it's not just the XDI rep that they earn. Maybe they earned some rep for mainnet as well. So some kind of top up or something we've talked about in the past, but we don't have a great way to do it at this point. But these guild the reps of the guilds and the rep of mainnet, I think, are highly connected to each other, because anyone contributing to one is contributing to the other one as well. But it gets complicated.
Yeah, that's like a major governance 2.0 question, which could be answered by just saying yes or no. As soon as the Omen team and community is moving into its guilds, there is no reason why, if I'm working full-time on Omen, I should get DXD rep, right? Then it's like the question, how much DXDAO rep the guild will get per successful quarterly results or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's assuming that you would be like sending proposals to the guild themselves. So I think, like, I guess for this, that we do need to get some consensus on the specifics of these parameters, because I actually think the 3 ones that you did polls on, I think all should be changed or altered in some way, and that'll kind of have effect right now and soon. So on just those kind of 3 parameters, I'm just going to update on what the polls are. So right now, the Q vote period limit with 8 votes, the average rate is 19.25 days. Currently, it's 45. And then the proposing rep reward, the average rating is 162. Right now, it's 500. And then should we disable voters' reputation loss ratio so no one is losing any reputation by voting on proposals? Right now, with 8 votes, 75% yes, 25% no. So just to get some idea that we can narrow down on these numbers, so that we can move forward with the plugin.
Yeah, I'm curious why people want to have, like, for me, it's totally reasonable to have like 14 days queued vote period. Like, why do people want a longer time frame?
I think the one issue could be that once we decentralize voting power, it may be harder to actually reach the 50% quorum mark. That's my only concern. But that could also be changed at a later time. I was fine with 21 days, but I'm not super hard on it either direction.
So the 21 or whatever this queued vote period limit is how long it takes to expire if it's not boosted, right? So, so I agree with the fact that it's difficult to get to the 50% and get the absolute majority, but this is sort of like the time you need you have to get it boosted or to reach absolute majority. I think I voted for like 3 weeks just because I felt like people maybe need some time to discuss, like some people may be making proposals without necessarily having gotten the community feedback ahead of time, and this gives like some time, but not like too long. Like I think we see a lot of proposals just sitting there, right? Like just waiting to expire, which is just
and we were actually talking about this at the beginning, was the clutter at the bottom of the current proposal queue. So I think that this is something that we see now of a lot of different ones. So I definitely think we need a shorter period for that. I do think there is a benefit to, like, even what we're doing now with the plugin scheme, which is we're kind of testing while the proposal is in the queue, right? And there's some flexibility for us to have that as, like, in this case, 21 days or 28 days, right? Even if we're not going to vote on it, it's good to have that proposal there to do it. So yeah, I think I'm leaning towards 21 days, but yeah.
But Pulp actually made a really great point. Like, again, if we are going the fractalization part and seeing like Gnosis DAO maybe is getting some rep, DXDAO rep, then I guess the whole proposal process will be actually increasing in time to make sure that all those slow moving DAOs are able to participate in voting, like thinking longer term. But right now, I don't think we need to have like a very long period.
And I guess we can adjust these, or what would the process for adjusting these be? I guess we'd have to install a new plugin scheme.
Nope, that's
Geronimo,
easily updatable.
Oh.
Geronimo, in that scenario, most of those sub DAOs will have to vote after a proposal gets boosted, which is still only 7 days, and they're not going to be able to move that fast. So that's still a problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, the guild, like I don't expect the guild to have a lot of money, so there could be ways to like reduce the voting process on the guild side. But that's like it's a very interesting question how we're gonna deal with all of this stuff.
Yeah, like DAOs voting on DAOs, we know is very slow. And once something's boosted, you have 7 days. Like I don't see how DAOs are going to be able to move that fast in a 7-day period. Even if you made
the
3 days.
Omen Guild the Omen Guild can be. I expect the Omen Guild to move way faster than the DXgov. Like I want to see market curation in 12 hours, something like that. Like at the end of the day, the guild is like a team who's working full time on making sure the Omen product is great, and that means faster verification processes and shit like that. So also, yeah.
I mean, but these
shorter.
These parameters are only about, like, if you want to move quickly, you can still move quickly. Like, these are really only about clearing up clutter at the bottom of proposals, like making proposals expire more quickly.
Yeah, the parameter we're debating here doesn't really affect what Sky just brought up, right? Like, which is like once it's boosted, how long does it?
Yeah,
true.
Yeah. Right, that would be 7 days. It's only these 45-day non-boosted proposals.
Yeah, so then 14 days seems like enough time, anyway, because we were saying you might want 21 days so that another DAO could help get over 50% voting. But that's not going to happen. Like they're more going to be voting on things that are boosted. So 14 days
boost after. You could boost after 18 days,
right?
And then because you're gathering votes the whole time,
Gotcha.
and then you boost at 18 days, and then you have, I guess, 7 days to be able to execute on those votes.
Okay, I was thinking more just regardless of if we are trying to decentralize, there's not going to be someone with like 10% voting power to get to that 50% easily. But again, I think 21-14, potato, and if it's easy enough to change, then why not do 14 now? Because that works best for us.
Right. Like, I mean, I agree with the point that it could be difficult in general to get to 50%, but then you don't need that to pass, though. You can still pass it by boosting it. So that makes sense. So I'm not sure that really impacts. Like, I agree with your concern. I don't think it really changes things, though, because if you boost it, then you can still pass it.
I see. Okay. Well, then, no problem.
So it looks like 21 days for queued voted period limit is a signal, which is totally fine by me.
For the last question, the voter reputation loss ratio. So, like, I actually think that in general, it's maybe not a bad idea to have voters put a little bit of skin in the game in their votes. But at least how it currently works, I'm not really a big fan of. The way it currently works is the reputation gets staked if you vote before it's boosted. So basically what that means, I think in practice, or at least how I operate, is like I just wait for it to be boosted before doing any votes, right? So,
and I'm not sure why. Like I agree with you. Like, why should voting on boosted proposals be any different than voting on unboosted proposals in terms of like your risk? I think if we want to decide there is some stake, maybe even some reward you get by voting correctly or voting incorrectly, I feel like that should apply just as much to someone voting on a boosted proposal or an unboosted proposal.
That's
agreed.
But also, I think for us, of course, we're constantly checking, people who are working or contributing frequently to the DAO, you're constantly checking alchemy, but maybe you're just like, okay, I have a small amount of time, I'm going to go vote really quickly. And then you basically decide not to vote because at that point it's not boosted, right? So that could just kind of disincentivize right now at this stage, getting people to really get on Alchemy.
Yeah, and I actually also think we're missing an opportunity for early votes to be signals for boosting, right? So you have a proposal submitted and then it already gets 1.5% or 2% votes right after it's submitted, even before it's boosted. That could be a signal to someone that wants to boost it, or looking at specifically who the people voting on that could be a signal for those that want to boost. So I don't think there's a reason for that. I don't know if others have a reason for making this stick around.
I think Elon was the one maybe who didn't vote for it, so we can maybe just ask him quickly. But if there's kind of a consensus, we could just go forward with it and maybe get some sort of feedback from him on the reasoning.
Yeah, I mean that was like a common thing, or that was just purposely put in by DAOstack when they designed this entire system. So there's probably a good reason they put it in, right? Well, better understanding why they put it in would be useful.
I think just because someone did something doesn't mean it was done for a good reason.
Or maybe there's always thought bad actors or something like that voting for things, but it would be good just to hear from someone who actually put it in there why they put it in there. I agree.
Yeah. And then to the middle, I think it's the middle question, should people get rep to make proposals? I like the idea of that because it helps distribute rep. Now, if it's always the same people, that's an issue. The whole thing about it giving more rep to people that already have 4%, that is an issue. But as we've talked about in other discussions, if rep becomes like a measure of contribution, and then you just limit the ability for someone to vote only up to using 4% of their rep, and they can't, even if they have 5%, they can only vote with 4% of it. It's a good thing to keep as a measurement of contribution and proposals and stuff. And our concern is limiting voting power to only 4% of rep. So if we're going to go with that path, then we should maybe even keep this. And 500 gets inflated over time. So as more rep happens, it becomes over time a smaller and smaller amount, right?
Yeah, I think it's helpful to look what is the average amount of, what is the total amount of proposals done by workers who are already getting rep, and how many community contributions we actually have. And if it's 8 out of 10 proposals, it's workers, then those shouldn't get more rep.
So that's what I saw from that last bit of data poll we did on some of the proposals. Of course, the majority of proposals are coming from workers, but I mean it's kind of like incentivizing two interests. If our purpose with the whole limit of 4% rep for workers is just to keep the decentralization goal afloat, we can still do that and just say, even if a worker's making a proposal, is there a way to just modify the parameters so that if that ETH address has already 4% rep, they just don't get the rep reward. But even if they don't, if they're making proposals, it's like, hey, you're a good worker, you're doing good work, you get more rep until you hit that 4% marker, so that we at least don't limit, people who aren't, employed by the DAO to get rep through proposals.
Augusto or Nico, do you guys know how feasible or how hard that might be to add? I don't know. I'm not sure. You'd have to update the plugin for sure.
Right.
Sorry, what?
It sounds like it would be the system gives the rep, and then you would have to implement something that checks if over 4% slash that rep that you were just given. Because the DAO can slash rep, right? So it would have to be instead of not give, the system just gives because that's what it's built to do. And then you would have to then slash it right afterwards or something.
Right. So this was something I think I asked Elon about this when he was putting together his fractalization proposal, whether or not you could limit an ETH address. And he said, yeah, it's possible, but of course you could have bad actors using different ETH addresses. for any type of like, I think we were specifically talking about it regarding the auction with the DXD tokens. So I know it could be possible, but again, I'm not technically savvy enough to know how difficult it is, and I don't want to overcomplicate things, but just kind of find a solution.
Yeah.
It's possible.
So
it is possible because Solidity is a Turing complete machine, but this is something that I think it would be way better if we just enforce it on the how can we say it? On a social level, right? On the proposal level, for example, something where we make sure that no one gets more reputation than the one that the limit that we enforce. Yeah, it can be implemented on chain, but I think that will make sense if we are like a super big organization. For example, if we have like, you know, thousands of voters or people, it will be hard to manage that limit manually, but we are small enough where we can still enforce that limit in a manual way. Even more now with the multi-call, where I think that we will be able to mint and burn reputation on multiple accounts at the same time through the same proposal, right, Nylon?
He actually just dropped a little.
Okay, but yeah, we are going to be able to do that, to burn and mint reputation multiple times through one proposal. So, for example, we say, hey, these 5 people are over the limit, we can slash their reputation just in one proposal. So that can be easy.
Yeah,
I think that makes complete sense. We can just do. I kind of was thinking about that maybe we can just work out some sort of community standards and just kind of keep an eye or have that as part of governance in general.
Yeah, and I think what we're finding is we're running into some problems or issues that we're facing, and then we're looking to solve those like direct issues. But in a lot of ways, these are just parameters for the governance system in general. So I think we should be thinking about what is best for that rather than, you know, what specific our problems are. I think with this one, there's the max rep. And I really like the idea of permissionless rep. And I think rewarding proposal submission winners with rep is the only real permissionless rep we have. And I think like rep distribution is like an inherent good in the world, and we should encourage it when we have. But I agree with the sentiment on these specifics that we don't need to be like just issuing a lot of rep to those there. So I'm in favor of some type of rep reward for proposal submission, but also in favor of like something that makes sure that that is not for everyone.
Something else to be aware of is that the funding and rep, I can never remember the actual name of this plugin. The main plugin that we use for funding is like 500 rep reward. But other ones don't have the 500 rep reward. Other ones are lower. Most of them, I think, are lower. And this multi-call is actually like replacing all those other ones, right? So, so actually 500 is probably the wrong reference point here anyways. Like you should probably actually go look at what the token registry one is, and like wherever most of the other proposals are actually happening. And so like I think in theory I agree with what everybody's saying here, like it's nice to reward participation, but I think you have to observe what's happening in practice. And I think what's actually happening in practice is people like myself are actually just getting more rep when I should be maxed out, and that's like actually undermining like some of our important goals, which is to increase distribution. So even though in theory it's like something that like sounds like it should increase distribution, in practice it's actually doing the exact opposite.
So I'm actually not sure if it's not increasing distribution, even though you're getting it, and like even though there's centralization, I think, and like that doesn't mean that there's not other distribution to other people that is like worthwhile for that. And so I guess my point is like, can we solve that one hiccup rather than kind of like blowing up the whole system of rep rewards for proposal submissions?
It's like with rep boost, one of the reasons we want people to submit their own rep boost is so that someone that's already working for DXgov doesn't submit all the rep boosts and get the rep. We want people to learn how to do a proposal, but then they get a little bit of extra rep in addition to their rep boost for submitting their proposal, which is great, I think.
So the generic scheme DX token registry plugin has a 10 rep reward for, and that's what this multi-call is replacing, right? So you're actually just who's adding tokens to the registry? Is it everybody in the community? I don't think so. Who's making? Yeah, so you got to think about this, right? You actually have to go and think about who's doing it and and what the actual impact is.
So what did you vote for?
I think we should keep it way lower. I don't think. I mean, I agree that we should be striving to give new people rep and reward their participation. But in practice, this is actually doing just concentrating rep more, and we need to.
I kind of agree with Ron. And I can maybe just do a much simpler poll on Alchemy to show just how many of the votes right now proposals are just being pushed through by workers.